Poverty measurements are broken, a clear, updated method of defining and measuring poverty. Poverty on its most basic level is the deprivation of a decent life. But what is a decent life? John Iceland claimed that this deprivation is economic in nature, that individuals who lacked resources to provide for their own basic needs were impoverished as a result. However, this economic deprivation is not the only way that an individual can be denied the chance at a decent life. Social inclusion and human capabilities, as mentioned by Sen and Nussbaum, are also important to living a decent life. We can conclude that poverty is a complex combination of economic and social circumstances, often brought on and amplified by one another, that lead to the denial of dignity and decency for an individual. In order to address this complex issue, we will be discussing three measures of poverty: the OPM, or Official Poverty Measure, the SPM, or Supplemental Poverty Measure, and the Capabilities Approach. We believe that by combining the best aspects of each approach, we can find the most effective way to address poverty in America. Poverty Measure, or OPM, was developed in 1955 by Molly Orshansky, a staff economist at the Social Security Administration. Orshansky derived her poverty measurement formula by calculating the minimum food cost for a family of 3 multiplied by 3 to account for other family expenses. If a family's pre-tax income fell below this line, the family was considered impoverished. The same system is still in place today. The OPM does not account for expenses pertaining to transportation, medical costs, childcare, other out-of-pocket expenses, or payroll taxes. In addition, the OPM does not account for subsidized housing, food, childcare, or utilities, all of which factor into a family's real income. All of these factors may lead the official poverty measure to seem like a very inaccurate way to determine if a family is impoverished. However, it becomes a good measurement tool when compared to the SPM and even the capabilities approach. The supplemental poverty measure, on the other hand, allows for a higher level of analysis in terms of the effectiveness of government spending programs. The SPM includes near cash and in-kind benefits, like food stamps, housing, and utility subsidies, whereas the OPM does not. By comparing these two measures, we are able to gain some perspective as to the effectiveness of these programs. Additionally, the SPM features a more updated and dynamic measurement process, rather than a one-dimensional food measurement from the 1960s. With changing spending amounts for households, as food now accounts for 1/6 of budgets rather than 1/3, the SPM offers a higher level of accuracy. In addition, the poverty threshold for the SPM is set differently. The 33rd percentile of expenditures on food, clothing, shelter, and utilities in a household with 2 adults and 2 children is then multiplied by 1.2 in order to account for any other non-discretionary expenses the family is incurring. Additionally, the SPM accounts for geographic differences in income, which can benefit families living in big cities or rural areas. These updated measurements are supposed to provide policymakers with a clearer picture of who is actually in poverty. It does not replace the OPM because, as I mentioned earlier, the OPM and SPM in conjunction allow for increased analysis of government spending programs, which is also extremely useful information to policymakers. Now that we have an understanding of how the OPM and SPM work together to provide policymakers with information about impoverished individuals, it's important to understand what these two measurement systems are lacking. Both systems focus heavily on the economic status of the person. However, some moral philosophers, such as Amartya Sen, argue that there is an aspect of human dignity that is missed by these economic measurement systems. Sen's method of identifying capabilities and functions to determine poverty attempts to get at some of the things that the OPM and SPM cannot measure in their current states. Capability is a measure of potential in a human being. a person's capabilities can be internal, like aptitude for a certain subject or impressive memorization skills. Combined capabilities are internal capabilities along with external circumstances that are conducive to a live function. A person's functionings, on the other hand, are things they actually choose to be and do. One strong argument against this approach is that focusing on the potential of people rather than their actual well-being may lead them to be worse off in the short run. However, this is a shortcoming that is largely dealt with by the OPM and SPM, which seek to provide immediate relief and subsidies to households who are struggling. For this reason, we can focus our attention on capabilities, as allowing people to have more combined capabilities has high potential for increased standard of living. 2. A sufficient level of decency. As policymakers, SEN claims that it is our responsibility to create combined capabilities for citizens, that is, to provide an environment where external circumstances don't hold citizens back from developing or using their internal capabilities. But how do we do this? By looking towards Nussbaum's work, we can identify some capabilities that are worth attempting to measure. These include things like living a normal lifespan, having good health and reproductive health, adequate nourishment, freedom from violence, domestic or otherwise, freedom from sexual assault, being culturally literate, being free to communicate, think, and express yourself, being free to love, grieve, and have attachments to people, places, and things, to be able to form a conception of the good, understanding common moral codes and common sense in your day-to-day life, to interact with other people, to form friendships and live with an equal amount of social dignity as everyone else, to live in relation to animals, plants, and nature, having time to recreate, and being able to effectively participate in political decisions, own property, and have an equal opportunity for jobs. One can quickly see the problems with the capabilities approach. It offers an overwhelming amount of information. Attempting to measure emotions, senses, thoughts, and imagination capabilities of each person or household borders on absurdity. There are not enough resources and not enough time to work out quantitative systems of measuring these capabilities. The good news is, however, that some of these capability metrics are already being measured and analyzed by the OPM and SPM. Census Bureau data, the same data used by the OPM, already measures age-related data for Social Security, and they take a census on housing every 10 years. Additionally, the federal government already knows who among our population are felons, and this bars them from political and material control. This means that, effectively, life and control over the environment are already being measured in some way, and could easily be factored into the SPM's calculations if we so chose. We don't believe that this step has to be taken. Rather, we are arguing that the list of essential capabilities can be consolidated. By doing away with other species due to its lack of applicability to aiding humans, and eliminating emotions, as it remains nearly impossible to measure, we are left with 6 remaining capabilities to focus on: bodily health, bodily integrity, senses, thought, and imagination, practical reason, affiliation, and play. Now, it is important to identify which of these capabilities produce the most fertile functions and the fewest corrosive disadvantages. Fertile functionings are functionings which allow many more combined capabilities to be utilized. An example of a fertile functioning could be a great high school education, which allows for play, bodily integrity, bodily health, affiliation, and the development of practical reasoning. A corrosive disadvantage is a function which does not exist to a certain standard of decency and results in widespread deterioration of other functionings in an individual. The 2 capabilities that we feel develop the highest quantity of fertile functionings are, as noted by Nussbaum, affiliation and practical reason. These capabilities offer a simultaneous respect for the individual and needs dignity, and an opportunity for the individual to organize and improve upon their other functionings. Affiliation offers a similar advantage. The structure provided by various types of affiliation, familial, social, political, and work-based, allows a person to feel included in society in various forms. Creating metrics and methods for capturing data on these two capabilities could vastly enhance the SPM, in turn offering Americans in need a more personalized level of care while protecting their human dignity. In defining poverty, we would suggest that any individual who fails to reach a threshold in the OPM, SPM, or affiliation and practical reason capabilities should be considered impoverished and designated for support. Our approach to measuring poverty in America is one that seeks to combine the essential capabilities we've identified, affiliation and practical reason, with the SPM, creating new metrics for measuring these capabilities. Additionally, we would suggest that the OPM's multiplier of 3 be changed to a multiplier of 6, due to the fact that 1/6 of current Americans' budgets go towards food. By seeking to quantify and analyze people's affiliation and practical reason, we can seek more localized solutions to problems. This could take the form of eliminating negative external circumstances that are preventing citizens from reaching their potential, or offering education and training to people who we know have the time and minds to take advantage of it. We acknowledge that no system can measure poverty perfectly, but we feel that including some of the architectural capabilities inside the SPM and slightly changing the OPM can give policymakers clearer data and lead to more effective solutions for impoverished Americans.